Hi everyone and welcome for this brand new tutorial how to paint Gregor Clegane, the mountain, for the game A Song of Ice and Fire, the tabletop miniatures game by Cmon or Not. This miniatures is pretty cool to paint. I take a lot of pleasure, so I hope you will like this tutorial. Don't hesitate to like my video, to post a comment, and to support me on Patreon to help me to propose you always more and more tutorial video. My Patreon have access to some special video to increase the level of these miniatures, for example. So let's go for the paint. So I just start by primed all the miniatures in black, and now I push some highlight just with my airbrush. It's pretty easy to do, and it's pretty cool to push your first highlight in that way, so the more dark parts stay black, and your more light parts is more easy to paint in that way. As you know, a lot of these miniatures is done in non-metallic metal. As you can see, the contrast is pretty important, so I'm going at beginning to use a lot of white and blue, white and black, sorry. So as you can see, I push every edges in white, and now I'm going to push all my black color in the opposite side of my white color, just to be sure you have the good dilution. On your palette, you can check that if your dilution is too much important, so if you move your color on your palette, they don't stay in the same place, they continue to move. So in this case, it's not a good dilution for that, it's a wash. If you don't see the palette just under the paint, it's not the good dilution. If you see, if your paint is a little bit transparent and a little bit covering, and you can push in a direction and the paint stay in that direction, so you have the good dilution. Don't hesitate to take your time at the beginning to find the good dilution. When you see, as you can see, I make the video in four times speed, if you want to try, don't hesitate to really take your time. As you can see, in the same way, I push my contrast a lot and push every edges with some white color, and I never stop on only one part. I always move just to let the paint being totally dry. It's very important to let the paint dry between two steps, just to be sure that the result is the good one, because when the paint is going to be dry, the color will change a little bit. So as you can see, I come back again with some black, and I'm going to make that on the different surfaces. Depending on the surfaces I'm going to reach with my brush, I'm going to push a different kind of position to the point of light and shadow. If you want to see in which direction you can put this, don't hesitate to take pictures of your mini just under the light. It can be very useful if you don't know in which direction to push your highlight. As you can see, the non-metallic metal can be a very cool method to paint your mini, because you are going to focus the eyes of people in the direction you want. But I pretty enjoy true metal painting too, so I will try to make a paint on true metal painting on my channel very soon. don't hesitate to post a comment. Tell me what do you want for the next one, or that can be always a good thing for me to know what do you want exactly for the next step. I really enjoy the range of Socks of Ice and Fire, because the scale of the mini is a little bit larger than usual, and it's more easy to paint. With my eyes, I start to be a little bit old probably, but it's really more easy to paint this kind of mini than Infinity. Well, pretty nice, right? But a little bit smaller, and sometimes it's not easy. So I continue on the different kind of surfaces for my non-metallic metals. The methods and the step is always the same. I start with white. I push every edge in white. Sometimes I put some point or line, depending on the surfaces I reach. And step by step, I push again and again my contrast. So I say that before, but I make a Patreon video especially to improve the level of paint of these miniatures. So it's some very small tips just to show how to increase the level by adding some glaze of color, blue and red, and some small kind of tips to create some effects on the leather, for example, and some very quick and easy tips. Non-metallic metal is a pretty good things to learn more quickly how to dilute your color. A lot of time when I give some class at Adepticon or on any other event, I see that a lot of people is afraid of this kind of method, but it's more about contrast. You need to push your contrast and don't hesitate to always go. And that's a very, very good things to learn a lot. I push more and more black. I'm going to paint one part of the minis, an half, and the other part is exactly the same. So at this moment I will cut and show you the different effects. We are going to paint the face and the laser after that. I think you can, if you need, you can reduce the speed of the video. So if you want to see my classical speed, so you need to reduce by 4 the speed of the video tutorial. So as you can see, it's a little bit repetitive, so you need to make it again and again to have a very contrasted white. But it's necessary, because if you push white not enough diluted, you are going to have some very bad issue, very large white. But by making it with a very, very diluted color, so it's going to be more thin, and you will have better effects at the end. Don't hesitate to tell me. Sometimes I'm not English native, so don't hesitate to tell me if some word can be better or some other one. I will take care about that for the next tutorial. I continue on the different parts. For example, for the armor on the arm, don't hesitate to push some lights of white. That can be very helpful because the size is not the surfaces is not it's not so easy than a sword or something like that. So you need to create some white reflect to simulate the reflection of light. So I start the shoulder. In this case, for example, we need to push white on the edges on every surfaces, even if this surface is in the shadow, but the shadow will stay always black. I will probably continue some paint on this mini, on this the mini from Songs of Ice and Fire, and after that I will probably make some hidden miniatures from Happy Games Factory, Jokers. And after that, I will probably make some Batman miniatures from Monolith Game, because I have some of them on my desk, so that can be pretty cool to do. I continue, as you can see, to push white on edges, and as I already do on the armor, on different parts of armor, I push some very small line of white to create some light effects. The most important things when you start to push this kind of line, it's to have something something a little bit chaotic. You don't need to have, for example, 3 lines totally parallel, because it's going to be very weird and not necessarily very natural. Now I continue the next step by pushing some wash with some dark tone from Army Painter. So that's going to help me to have a better visibility on the piece, and I don't touch the part I already paint. So that will be really more easy for me for the next step, to paint just the part I need and to focus my attention on the leather, on the face, and on the chainmail, or on the different part. Here is the results, and now I'm going to continue with some flat earth. So I push that on the base, and after that I'm going to put that on the different leather part. It's pretty easy to push, and now I continue on the leather part, but this time with red leather. So it will be on all the different parts in leather. As you can see, I use a lot the side of my brush and not the end of my brush. It's pretty important to reach a larger surfaces, and that will help you to have no trace of brush when you put your color. This step is not very complicated, but pretty important to have something perfectly clean. As you can see on the head, I push the laser, and I directly try to preserve my more shadow parts. So I push my color and try to don't reach and don't touch my most my big recesses, so the most important shadow on the mini. Now I'm going to add some dark sea blue in my shadow, so it's going to create a deeper effect in my shadow, with that work perfectly right with all red leather you can use. This is very, very simple. Just take care about the dark sea blue because you need to dilute a lot. It's a very, very covering color. So don't hesitate to dilute a lot and make different glaze. It's look like some juice of color, and you need to remove a little bit from your brush to have just a few color to put. And once again, just let the paint totally dry before come back on this part. I come back with my first color just to put again some highlight, and after that I'm going to add into this color a little bit ivory to create my second highlight. Every time I come back with a new paint, I try to preserve 30% of my previous paint surfaces to create my transition. It's very important because without that preservation of color, you are going to don't have a very good transition. So take care about this. After the first after I do all the treatment on the layer, I start to paint the face. In this case, the face is pretty dark, so I'm going to use some barbarian flesh from Army Painter just to push my highlights on some very small surfaces. It's very important to reach small surfaces with your brush, and after that I'm going to make a juice of color on all the face and come back once again with the same color and adding more and more ivory into that color. Every time I come back just on a very, very few parts. More I'm going to put my color, more this color is going to be strong. After that, I come back with a mix between my barbarian flesh and my red leather to create a wash and push a little bit more shadow on the face. And I come back with my dark sea blue very diluted on the beard to create some shadow on the face and the beginning of the color of my beard. I don't hesitate to put a little bit of the rest of my paint into the eyes. And I start to push my highlight on the face by adding a little bit ivory into my basical barbarian flesh. As you can see, painting flesh is not very complicated. You just need to focus the highlight on some few points, and that's all. I come back just with some pure ivory, very diluted, just to put a little bit highlight everywhere, and finish by pushing some highlight on the beard. After I push the highlight on the beard, you are going to see I'm just going to make a wash to clean everything on the beard. I really hope you enjoy this painting tutorial. Don't hesitate to join me on my Patreon, Mohand Art, and I will show you how to increase a little bit the level of these miniatures. Don't hesitate to share my video tutorial if you like them and to show to your friend. Thank you very much, and don't hesitate to tell me what will be your favorite miniatures for the next painting tutorial on Songs of Ice and Fire, and find the time to paint. See you guys!